Blended Podcasts. Brought to you by Blended Audio.
What's up, everyone, and welcome back to Talking Shit with Talos. I'm joined, as always, by my main man, Pubby.
Yo, what's up?
And we're picking up on where we left off in episode 2, Lady Lovelace's Objection. To define Lady Lovelace's objection again, well, to clearly actually say it as she stated it, is the analytical engine has no pretensions whatsoever to originate anything. Just to remind you about what that really means is that she was talking about Charles Babbage's analytical engine, which is a very basic form of the first computational system. Not even really a computer, but a computational system operating...
A human-made computational system.
Yeah. Human-made computational system, largely relying on Lady Lovelace's input in the form of punched cards.
Yeah, she was like the first programmer.
She was the first programmer ever. I learned that when I was researching for this podcast. I think that is, it's a very undersold aspect of history, and clearly she was very intelligent as well. Not just because she was a programmer, but because she had the foresight to sort of extrapolate what these kind of machines would be able to do and what they were doing now. But she did live in a time of technological limitations.
Yeah.
And that's really where her objection comes from, in my opinion, is that the technological limitations of the time didn't allow for the mapping of thought without the act of a human providing an instruction. So,
I mean, I will say that some people might still agree with her today in the sense...
Really?
Yeah, I mean, just in the sense that... So, say, for example, you look at our most sophisticated AI technology today, it has creativity, but not in the sense that humans have. So for example, AI today can make new faces that have never existed before, but it can't invent a sport like chess and then learn how to play it and enjoy it. It could learn how to play it given the rules.
Yeah.
So in that sense, there's still no ghost in the machine, but I think she would have been very surprised at the creative things it can do today.
Currently, the advancements for sure. But I see what you're saying. You know, this is going to get into more. We're going to get more into this in our conversation about artificial intelligence versus artificial general intelligence. Yeah, and really, what Pubby's saying, like the story of the AI creating new faces. That was NVIDIA's AI, wasn't it?
It was this really interesting... I'll tell you about it. It was a really interesting paper by a guy from Oxford called Ian Goodfellow, and he made these new types of learning algorithms called general adversarial networks, or GANs.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll get to that.
We'll get to that. Okay, so while we can debate this philosophically at length, which we definitely will do, I feel like for the purposes of this episode, it's important to differentiate between an analytical engine and a Turing-complete system. So, really where it differs is that a Turing-complete system doesn't operate off punch card and direct... Well, it does operate off direct training data, but it more so operates on the function or the idea of an infinite tape. So a tape with a read and write head that is able to interpret bits of information that is presented in front of it based on the bits of information, either one before the step or one behind the step.
Yeah.
And it can then either move the tape left or right with the goal of trying to create a true or false conclusion.
Yeah.
Program terminating, hopefully, in a true conclusion. So this changes the dynamic of machines.
So just to give some context for where Turing machines come from, I don't know where it was, but it was this great German mathematician called David Hilbert, and he posted like a list of, I think, 23 questions. And these questions were supposed to be like the major questions for mathematics. And one of the questions he posted in a very simple way was, if I have an algorithm, sometimes algorithms get stuck in these infinite loops. So you could imagine you have a car that's on a square at one corner, and then you always tell the car, when you reach your next corner, turn left. It'll just always keep traversing the vertices of the square.
Right.
And he wanted to know, is there so that situation happens in maths as well. There are algorithms that get stuck in infinite loops.
Really?
Yeah, and so he wanted to know, in a very, like, I'm putting it in a crass way, but does there exist an algorithm whose input is another algorithm? And what that algorithm will tell you is if the input algorithm contains an infinite loop in it. So you'll know this if you do like first year comp sci, that like you will like write some code and you'll get stuck in an infinite loop, and you'll only know because you run out of like computer memory or something.
Okay.
But there exists no algorithm that can check if you have infinite loops in your code.
Yet.
Yeah. No, it doesn't. And actually, that's why the Turing machine was invented. So the Turing machine isn't actually a real machine, but it's a model of computation.
Right.
So they're like, so for example, we do computation when we take light rays into our eyes and we turn them into images.
Right.
Nature does computation when it transfers DNA, or like when it turns like an egg and a sperm cell into a zygote. So there are different types of computation, and Turing's model is a model of a specific type of computation. And so the Turing machine is basically a model of mathematical computation, and Turing complete systems are systems that can simulate a Turing machine.
Okay,
So if you code in C++ or Python or Java or anything, all of these are Turing complete systems in the sense that they can simulate anything that a Turing machine can simulate.
Right, and then this differs from a purely analytical engine.
Yeah, because the analytical engine was more like a real-life thing in the real world that you can touch, where a Turing machine is like an abstract model for computation.
So then now, how did the Turing computational model, and you know, you said the Turing machine wasn't a thing, but he did have the code-breaking machine in World War II.
Yeah, he definitely had that.
And that, you know, as far as I understand, that set up the basis for modern computation.
No, definitely. So I don't know much about that part of history, but I'll tell you why the Turing model is so important to AI. It's because there are these things called computable functions, and you also have non-computable functions.
So to define a computable function,
I mean, it's quite technical, but it's basically any function that can be computed by a Turing machine. It's like that.
a bit of a feedback loop there, dude.
No, but so I mean, I don't know Dunning-Kruger. I'm not gonna pretend like I know but there's this hypothesis called the Turing thesis, and it says that any computable function, right, can be computed by a Turing machine. So it's a thesis in the sense that it's not proved as like a mathematical theorem. So we don't know if there's some computable functions that can't be simulated by a Turing machine. But why that's important for the brain and for AI in general is because we use computers to simulate AI, right? But if it turns out that the brain is a non-computable function, or that the Turing church thesis isn't 100% correct, we might be doing things in principle that computers can't do.
Right, so you're saying that the mystery of consciousness, really, it might be a non-computational function.
Yeah. But the thesis says that anything that's computable is
A computer.
can be simulated by a Turing machine.
So to break that down into the real world a little bit, as you say, we're doing computational functions when our eyes take in light. When our
That's
retina,
what we hope we're doing.
well,
yeah.
that's what you hope.
Yeah.
But basically, when your retina takes in light, your brain has to interpret that light into colors and shapes and space and all of those things, and that. Again, going back to our good friends Hobbes and Descartes and Leibniz, it can be broken down as a logical formula of a process, really.
It's information processing.
Yeah, if this, then that, if that, then that, and so it carries on at an incredibly fast pace because obviously light is...
it's the fastest.
Immediate.
It gets,
it's immediate. It's that there's nothing in the universe that's more immediate than your perception of light.
Yeah.
Which also, as you can probably tell, highlights quite a big hurdle for artificial intelligences. And visual learning is something we're going to get into a bit later in detail because it's really very interesting.
Yeah.
The relationship between vision and reality and computational systems and how they interpret reality, Will the super AI have eyes? And if the super AI has eyes, what is it going to see?
That's an interesting question.
It is an interesting question, and it's a question I feel like we need to set up a little bit more before we really delve into it. Because it's a very complex question that is stumping the smartest minds in this field at the moment. But yeah, so really we can define a Turing complete system as a system that is capable of computation.
Yeah.
And in terms of the progression of computational power and machine learning and artificial intelligence, the more instances a computer can compute, the smarter it is. So the more you break down reality into computational functions, the more likely a Turing complete system is able to understand it, and the smarter, in inverted commas, that system will get.
Yeah.
Did I just put my foot in it there?
I don't know. Yeah, there's a lot of things you can get tripped up by over there. But as like a general principle, I kind of agree with the idea that if you're able to compute more, you should be able to, for example, look at more parts of your search tree, or you'll be able to maybe perform more computationally intense algorithms. And in a sense, you might be smarter in that way. But yeah, so as a general principle, I do think more compute is more smart, but there's a lot of nuance.
There's a lot of nuance.
Yeah.
I definitely realize that, but I should also clarify what I'm saying. Really what I'm talking about in terms of more compute equaling more intelligence is that as this field is advancing, we are breaking down more human things into computes, games like chess, then onto games like Go and checkers and so on.
Yeah.
And there are people doing natural language processing and visual processing. So we're slowly taking the world of human experience and breaking it into compute.
Yeah.
Into Turing compute
100%
systems, right?
Yeah.
Working off ones and zeros, that's it. Amazingly, that's it. And really just breaking everything down into these reductions of true or false syllogistic logic. Yeah.
Actually, it's kind of like a side point, but a lot of physicists now are starting to believe that the whole universe is just computation, which is interesting.
Does that differ from believing the whole universe is a simulation?
I mean, I once again Dunning-Kruger, but
our good friend, dude. He's our third co-host.
But yeah, I mean, so it might be true that we're in a simulation. There's a really famous philosopher called Nick Bostrom, and he thinks that the probability that we're in a simulation is actually pretty high. Elon Musk also apparently.
Well, Elon Musk's argument for the simulation's actually the most simple and the most convincing and the most terrifying, because essentially his argument is throwing out physics and philosophy and all the wonderful high intellectual stuff and just looking at what's happening. And he's like, look, we are developing video games and VR systems at such a rapid rate that we can say in a certain amount of time there is going to be a virtual reality environment indistinguishable from normal reality. We can almost say that as a fact as technology develops. So if we can view that now, there isn't really any way to say or to prove or to tell that hasn't happened already. You know what I mean?
It's like we're not a video game for some advanced civilization.
Yeah, well, essentially, if we are continuing along the path of creating virtual environments indistinguishable from normal environments, there's nothing to say we haven't already completed that journey and we are currently just in the indistinguishable virtual environment. Which...
That's kind of scary.
Yeah. It's like, you can't really argue with that as well, because he's right. These things are going to advance to that point, and they're advancing fairly rapidly to that point.
I do think, though, that, like, the amount of compute an advanced civilization would need to compute every single drop of water falling everywhere in the earth and
every single blade of grass and
that sounds like an ungodly amount of compute. I don't know if it even exists in principle.
To digress even more, you've got the Kardashev scale. Different. Have you heard of the Kardashev?
No, I haven't.
Oh shit! Okay, so this is totally out of the bounds. No, well, actually, this is why Talos talks shit. So, the Kardashev scale is a scale of civilizational advancement. I can't exactly remember who Kardashev was, but he was a scientist, and I don't know what his contributions were other than this, but basically, you've got four types of civilization: a type 0, a type 1, 2, and 3. So, I've got to get this right again. Let me just think about this for a second. But basically, a type 0 civilization is a civilization that has figured out how to harness renewable energy.
Okay. So we're not even type 0 yet.
We're not even a type 0 on the Kardashev scale yet.
So excited.
Then type 1 civilization on the Kardashev scale is figured out how to harness infinite renewable energy from the environment around them. Can't remember what type 2 is, but type 3 is when civilizations start building Dyson spheres. So what a Dyson sphere is, as theorized by Kardashev, is it's essentially a megastructure built around a star.
Oh, and like harnesses
that will harness the star's energy, okay, but in an infinitely ecological way. So they aren't necessarily sucking the star's energy. They are just using... I can't even remember what the science is behind it that would allow them to do this, but there is some robust science behind the spinning Dyson sphere. So the important thing is like interlocking rings that spin around each other.
Okay.
And yeah, so essentially what you're saying is that if we were, well, we arguing here, but if we were in a simulation, we would need at least the Kardashev level 1 or 2 society to make that happen, you know?
Oh, not even 3, eh?
Not even 3. Well, 3 would be ideal.
Lives.
3 would be ideal, and 3 would perhaps be the computational power needed to simulate a universe, because if we're in a simulation, why can we look thousands of light years into the future and the past in space? You know? Why do telescopes work if we're in a simulation? Like,
yeah.
Surely, you know, it's one thing to simulate Earth, but then to simulate like 10,000 light years beyond Earth consistently and evenly and like obeying the laws of physics is quite, as you say, it's pretty intense.
Yeah.
But, yeah, maybe more for another episode.
Time,
yeah. So
digressions.
But as we can see from all of these digressions, any kind of machine or algorithm capable of doing any of these kinds of unbelievable things would at least need to be able to compute, as in break down fundamental structures and natures of the universe into true or false statements and ones and zeros. And really the first Turing complete system was a machine called ENIAC. Do you know about ENIAC?
I know it was made by another alien. It was like John von Neumann or something, right?
I don't know if John von Neumann made the ENIAC. Let's give this a quick Google here, just to.
But I know it was like the
fact-checked
first,
ourselves.
like, computer, and it like took a whole room.
Yeah. So the thing about the ENIAC is that it was a valve-based computer. So for those of you who don't understand that, now in modern computers, everything runs off silicon chips and transistors, and they are a very efficient way of transmitting energy and information and data. But when they built the ENIAC in the 40s, 1946,
It's like a year after World War II ended.
yeah, at the tail end of World War II,
Okay,
really, yeah. And not long before Arthur Samuels' first chess-playing machine learning algorithm, which we will segue into gracefully, hopefully. But the ENIAC worked off of tubes, like vacuum tubes that you might find in an old guitar amp or an old hi-fi system. And this is just a pretty wild thing to anyone who understands electronics and stuff. And this ENIAC machine, it took up multiple rooms, required multiple people to operate it, and it wasn't that intelligent. You know, it was quite a simple sort of base compute machine, you know. So yeah, really what's interesting about that is that from 1946 to, I believe it was in 1951, that Arthur Samuels created the first machine learning algorithm.
Okay.
And the jump from the ENIAC to the first machine learning algorithm was incredibly short, and this is kind of how all of this has gone over the last sort of 100 years, 50 years or so. Advancements happen. They seem very exciting. Everyone gets in a big state about them. Everyone makes these big promises, and then they hit a brick wall. And I don't know if you want to maybe just talk about Arthur Samuels and his chess-playing algorithm. If you know anything.
I don't actually know much about it, yeah.
As far as I understand it, up until this point, the way they were teaching computers how to learn is they were teaching them what to learn. So there would be one of the first sort of recognition algorithms ever. Well, I suppose you could loosely call it an algorithm, but basically someone would show them a picture of a face and say, this is a male face, and then this is a female face, and then this is not a face. And they'd do that over and over and over again. And the thing eventually had like a 40% accuracy at predicting, saying what kind of face this was. But it was really simple. It was like an old 50s machine with a big scanner and big lights that went ping male, ping female, ping not sure. So the jump from this into Turing-complete systems was huge because, I messed that up. The jump from the first Turing-complete system to Arthur Samuels and his chess-playing algorithm was that Arthur Samuels wasn't telling the algorithm, do this, then that.
It was learning from data.
It was learning from data, but he taught it how to learn incredibly slowly. And eventually, he was quite a good chess player, Arthur Samuels. Eventually, his algorithm, I think, was able to beat him.
Was it chess or was it checkers?
Was it checkers? Wasn't the checkers 1 second?
I don't know.
Yeah. Let's just Google that before we go, just to make sure. I'm pretty sure it was chess. Oh, no, I'm wrong. It was checkers. Thank you very much, Puppy. That's why I have you here, man. That is what you do for me. You keep me straight and
Keep
narrow.
you honest.
Keep me honest, dude. It's a dangerous world out there. So now we sit in 1951. Machines have just learned how to learn. And in our next episode, we will be exploring how those machines learned how to learn. And I hope you join us for it. As always, I want to thank Blended Audio and Blended Audio Podcasts for allowing this to be possible. Pubby for keeping me straight and keeping the fake news out of the studio.
My pleasure.
Yeah, it is your pleasure. Damn right. And Kenny Dolo for engineering us wonderfully, as usual. Also, big shout out to Mr. Mafiana and the Selective Hearing crew. If you don't know the Selective Hearing gigs, you should definitely go check them out. There's a lot of really tasty, really interesting and fresh music being played around Cape Town. Yeah, cheers guys.